when I'm gone, he said that's what he's going to play. I said,
Oh my
"Yeah."
God,
Exactly.
nice.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Favorite person. Come on, girlfriend. Thank you. For that, I'm going to buy you one.
Oh,
Thank
you.
You're welcome.
Good
evening. Oh, come on.
I know the table is kind of deceptive. We're good. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Green Room. We are still Dr. Barry-less. He is still cruising along. I think he's on the Amalfi Coast, poor guy, having a rough life. Interestingly enough, his wife Patty was posting some pictures of cannabis products that are out in Europe. And it's kind of interesting, even though it's not technically legal, patients or people are still walking around, I shouldn't say patients, people are walking around and going into them. So today I have a special guest. She's one of our educators, and she's been with us how many years now?
2.5.
2.5
Yes.
years. And today, so we're going to have like a quirky little green room. We're going to talk about new dispensaries, new products, give an overview of what's happened in Venice lately, because we have some new dispensaries in town. Yay. So we're going to discuss all of that. But I do have to discuss telehealth. So telehealth, it got signed by Governor DeSantis. There is a big quirk now with telehealth. Telehealth, the way the law is written right now, is whoever the doctor was who saw you initially for your very first visit ever is the doctor who can do a telehealth visit with you. So say, for instance, if you have a covering doctor or you have a practice of 25 doctors, you now have to, the office has to go back and backtrack and see which doctor saw the patient physically, because that doctor who saw the patient physically is the only one who can do a restart via telehealth. So we are rolling it out in our practice. Just know it's going to be a little bit of a slow rollout. And the only reason is now we have to go through chart by chart and find out who you saw in our practice. If it was Dr. Gordon, Dr. Trinchetto, or Dr. Sharif, because we have 3 physicians on. So please be patient, and please don't be frustrated if we tell you, you saw Dr. Gordon, he's on vacation. You cannot do a telehealth with our other doctors, unfortunately. The law forbids it. So hopefully the law eventually, I'm hoping that will change, just because I think it's so restricted. It's crazy.
It's very.
And especially with the practice that is covering doctors, I think it's insane.
And not to mention that there's doctors that aren't in practice anymore. It's hard to track some of these other, OG kind of doctors down.
Mhm.
And so
Actually, that's a really good point, because we have a few doctors that were on and left. I didn't even think of that.
So,
Oh my gosh.
Well, we
right.
get so many transfer patients too.
Even transfer patients. And that's the other thing. I think that people don't realize, even for the transfer patients, they will not have telehealth if they change physicians. So I think, there's a lot of quirks still to be ironed out, I think, in that arena. So like I said, be patient. We're excited that it's out. It's just going to take a little while to roll it out appropriately. And just think you'll get to see our doctors face to face still for a while, whether you want to or not.
And me.
It's otherwise now it's going to be telephonic. That's the other thing that's a little weird. During COVID, we had to have a video call. So you still had to physically, not physically, but at least see the person via the phone. So video chat or whatever. And now that's taken away too, that you can only do a phone call. So it's a little unusual. And the only thing I'm kind of surprised that the doctors did that. And I know there was debate even on the floor from some people, because regular legislators are patients too. A doctor still sees, when they see you physically, there's a lot to be said, from when you see a patient live versus the phone. And I think, you can read a lot from body language. You can see their coloring, their eyes. I mean, everything physically.
Yeah, absolutely. Just that sort of, kind of first glance at a patient when they come through, especially if they were sick before. Have they gained weight? Have they lost weight? Yeah, that's a big,
It is. And I'm a little bit surprised that they allowed it. I really am, just because I think from a patient care, I don't think it's the best thing for patient care. I really don't. And like you said, what if a patient lost a lot of weight? If they did, we could speak to them about that.
Right.
So unless they tell us over the phone, we won't even know that happened. And even getting the list of meds and things, I think, when it's over the phone or they're doing the form, it could be one thing. And then a lot of times I know when patients come in, all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, and I had that, I added that, and or I had this procedure done, and they all of a sudden remember afterthoughts. So on the phone, it's going to be a little bit riskier. The other thing is, even one of the legislators, it was a female, and she actually had a really valid point. You can't tell if a patient's pregnant necessarily over the phone, but you can when she's live in your office. And a lot of concern one of the legislators had was, what if a patient is pregnant and she says she's not, and we really don't want cannabis used when the patient's pregnant. And so, there's a whole lot of issues there. And then I don't know. I'm finding it like kind of a catch-22 in some areas where it's good and it's bad.
Right.
And it's good and it's bad.
Right. But and even though you can flip that around and say that you have patients that come in that are early in a pregnancy or maybe aren't showing, and you have to, that again really lies on the patient to be truthful with their physician.
I agree. And the only thing is, I think a lot of times, whether the patients are shy or whatever, I think, sometimes they're nervous. Well, that's a new patient, but after they've been in for a while, it's a little bit different. But the only other thing too, like I was thinking about, like all these patients that come in and you build a relationship and a rapport with them. It's a little bit different over the phone. And I think that personal contact, and I think that education that you guys provide, again, I think for the state of Florida, we're a really unusual practice because so many practices do not give education to their patients. And I think a lot of them, they look forward to seeing you guys, even because you come in, you're smiling, what the new products are. You guys you get a feel for the patient even by their body language a lot of times. So like they can be like, well, you tried me, and they're like, and you can see it, and they're like, okay, so you don't like that, or, you
get a better feel off of them that way.
So I don't know. We'll see what telehealth brings. For the very sick patients, the patients that have cancer, or in nursing homes, things like that, it's fantastic because there are so many patients that just cannot physically get here, and to rely on a caregiver or somebody, sometimes it's so difficult. So for those patients, it's a true blessing. And I think that's the main goal of the telehealth, was to have access given to those patients. So now we have some new and exciting news in Venice. So did a soft opening, or
they had their grand opening on Friday that went through the weekend. So tomorrow will be a week that they've been since the grand opening. They actually opened last Wednesday soft.
And so where are they?
They are on 41, right between Woodmere Park and Jacaranda, out in front of Target. It's in the old IHOP building, and you would never know that it was an IHOP when you walk in there. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. So did they do any specials? Are they running anything?
They were running grand opening specials. I know that in a few days we're going to start seeing 7/10 specials. So concentrates, carts, things like that are going to go on sale pretty much everywhere. It's kind of like a second 420 holiday.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Oil upside down.
Oh,
we'll look for any reason to celebrate. Absolutely. So another thing too that we realized, and this is great for local patients, Trulieve, because of where it sits, they're not open on Sundays, and they close by noon on Saturdays here in Venice.
That's early. Okay.
The Move is not subject to those, so they will have Saturday and Sunday hours, which is great for patients. If you need something past noon on a Saturday, there's going to be somewhere now that is going to be convenient for patients.
Weekends. That's fantastic. Actually, that's really good news.
So,
is it because of the plaza regulations?
I don't know if it has to do with regulations or if it's a Venice thing, or
maybe it's like zoning. Probably zoning. So it could be like Sunday blue laws or something. You can dispense something or give something out. Who knows?
Who knows?
And what about Flowery? Any news on them?
I still haven't had any update as far as when they're going to be moving into that building a little bit further up 41. But they did open up their delivery, so it's all week now. Get your orders in before 4:20 p.m. and they can deliver to you next day still.
Oh, that's really cool.
And I've been I'm a super fan of theirs right now for
Oh,
sure. Yeah.
nice, very nice. And so now on the whole state of Florida, I know there's a lot of new licenses out. What are some of the dispensaries? Do you know any off the top of your head? Just off the top.
Kind of the sort of one of the newer ones that I actually was in 2 different locations in the state is Jungle Boys.
Oh, nice.
They're primarily flower. They are a company that is from out west, and flower is incredible. I was to their Palm Harbor location and to the Daytona Beach location. And so I don't know if we'll see one of those nearby us anytime soon.
Now, do they deliver?
Not at this
Not
point.
at this point.
Not
Okay,
at this
so
point,
they're just
no.
brand new and out there.
They're new. They're starting to open up some new ones. Cookies is another pretty popular brand of dispensaries. They are opening their 3rd in Orlando. So there's going to be, some of the spots, especially if you travel throughout the state. I always tell patients, get out there and check out some of the dispensaries, because you're going to find different things in, different parts of the state that we might not necessarily have here in Sarasota County.
Sarasota's opening. I can't remember the name of it now. I was driving down 301 in Sarasota, and it's a cute dispensary. It's and an IHOP also. It's kind of funny. They're taking over IHOPs. So, but is it not the Cannabis? I don't remember. It's like, but it's real. It's brand new and it's right on 301, where the old IHOP was, and so there's somebody there. And now Move is opening in downtown Sarasota.
That one is open. Yes, it's right there on
like,
Main Street.
Yeah,
And then a block up from them on Main Street is Sunburn. And that's a really cool little dispensary. They have a pool table in there. So you can kind of, you can just kind of chill. Not consumption lounge yet, but it's
maybe it's gearing up for that.
Yeah, that would be very
That
cool.
would be smart actually to do that downtown now that you said
That's that would be a good spot to start there.
Oh, and doesn't Sunburn, I think they have another location on Lockwood Ridge, right?
That is Sunnyside.
That's Sunnyside. Okay, but Sunburn and Sunnyside.
Sunburn, Sunnyside, yes. And they both deliver as well. Both Sunburn and Sunnyside will deliver to the area.
So what about products now? Anything new on the market? Anything a little bit different? Or are they all still kind of going along the same lines?
Still along the same lines. I think some of the newest things we've seen are the RSO based edibles, still 10 milligrams, possibly a little bit more potency in that 10 milligrams because it is an RSO based product. So you'll see that in gummies and chocolates and things like that now at Truly, Move, the Cannabis. I've seen them there as well. That's really been the newest thing. Always tread very carefully with your edible.
Can you also explain maybe like the RSO, like, because a lot of patients, people listening, sometimes they don't know. Like,
so RSO or Rick Simpson oil is a full spectrum extract oil. We like simplest terms, it's as close to the full plant as you can get. It's already decarbed, so you can use it orally. It was actually developed by Rick Simpson to be used for topical cancer treatment. And I have had patients that still mix the RSO in with their own cocoa butter, different lotions, things like that to use topically. But as an oral product, it's great. It's great. You get definitely more of a more medicinal effect out of it because it's keeping a lot of the plant intact.
So like for patients that are listening and they might have, is more severe pain, or is it like?
Definitely, it's not something we would recommend to beginners. It would be something that, will usually be the next step up. So if you find that maybe you're taking 1 or 2 gummies to try and get to bed at night, that starts to get a little bit expensive, so we try to look for more cost-effective ways. So that's just another option that's out there for patients, to kind of use less of something that's just a little bit stronger.
I want to ask a question. So about gummies and things. So do people react differently, correct? Like, so some patients, like, they respond more to something with an indica, which makes them maybe sleepy, but others, sometimes they have the adverse reaction, don't they?
They can.
Somebody asked me that. And I'm like,
they can. And that's really with any product, be it indica versus sativa, is going to be how it can affect people. Typically, your indicas are more sedating, more relaxing. Some people behind the monitor are opposite. So, so it's all a very safe trial and error, experiment, which is something we didn't think we'd get to say, experiment with your cannabis. That's great.
I think
But
that is good because I think people do react differently.
absolutely.
Because I know, like, even like some friends of mine, like they take something and there's some of them like it makes them sleepy. Some of them are like, oh my God, it doesn't do anything for me for sleep.
Yeah, and especially with edibles, because the way that edibles convert in the liver, it actually turns into a different type of THC. So for some patients, it can be more mild. I'm not a big edible person. I feel like I have to use a lot to get my desired effect, and I just sleep. But for other people, half a gummy and they can sleep for 8 hours a night, and bless them, because I wish I could do that, so it's definitely a trial and error, sort of process, and you have to be patient.
Is that the best for sleep though? Like taking an edible, or what would you like? Is that?
I like a combination, something long lasting. We'll talk to patients about, do they have trouble falling asleep or trouble staying asleep? Trouble falling asleep, you want to take that edible hour or two before you're starting to get ready to wind down for bed. If you have trouble staying asleep, take it closer to when you go to actually lay down, because then you'll fall asleep. It'll start to take effect and it'll hopefully sustain through the night. Cut it in half, do one of each. Something fast acting with something long lasting. So a vape or an oil with part of a gummy, that'll do its job while the gummy kicks in. You kind of get that 1-2 punch with it.
Oh, that's good. That's really good to know. Cause like I said, I know there's so many people that have insomnia, especially, and they're always like looking for something natural, and they don't want the Ambience or whatever to fall asleep. And everybody's trying to get off of that. But the only thing is people are like, well, I don't know, like, what do I take? How much do I take? And they're always asking. And I'm like, well, go ask your doctor, first of all, and then an educator.
Yes.
But they're like, oh, well, you work there. I'm like, doesn't mean I know. I'm like, I have to go to Kara and ask these questions. That's why we have Kara. So,
and we learn every day from the patients, because there's always something different, but definitely. Yeah, definitely ask your doctor.
Do you see the majority of patients, like, are they now moving more towards edibles because they're available, or do you still see more vaping and flower use?
It's very interesting, because it almost seems to be generational.
Oh, really?
I feel like a lot of the older population, say 60 and up, like to use the edibles. There's not a very big stigma associated with just being able to pop a little bit of nicotine. But a lot of times that they're looking for something that's going to help them with sleep or help them with pain. So you want to give them something that's accessible. You don't want to tell them that, okay, go buy oils and learn how to dab, because they're ever going to do that. So you have to work with the patient as far as what their level is. I do see carts are kind of just for everybody, but I do see a lot of younger patients using vape carts instead of actually smoking.
Oh,
so it's kind of like I actually heard a kid the other day say, I felt very, very old. They asked him, did he want oil or flower? And he said flower, because I'm stuck in the 1990s. So that guy, cool. Go back to school.
Yeah. In the 90s. Okay.
So yeah, it definitely seems to be there's definitely a trend, in one direction or the other. So
the ones who like the flower, do you see, like, is there like typically like is it more female or male? Like, do you see anything like that?
I think it's pretty even, actually. I think it's pretty even. I think that's just what people know. It's what they're familiar with. I still think that's what you get the best result with, me personally, even myself. There's so many different strains, do your research on, terpenes and your dispensaries and the things like that, because there's some really great products out there on the flower side. And I do think it just has benefits to it that you don't necessarily get from some of those other products.
So even for the patients listening, because some of them, say they might be interested in trying flower. what's the best way to approach it? Should they get a pre-roll or what should they do?
I think if you've never ever used flower or smoked before and you're interested in it, pre-roll is great. It's a great way to try strains and see. I think if you're brave enough to buy yourself an eighth and get yourself a little flower vaporizer, that's the best way to use it because it's less harsh. It's not combusting, so you don't have the smoke. It's more of a vapor. And that's an amazing way to use the plant. Yes,
I didn't even know that. I learned something today. I learned something here every day. I feel like that's cool. Now, I've heard a lot of people talking about now, like topicals.
Yes.
That they really are working a lot for.
Love my topicals.
Really?
Yes.
So talk to us. Who makes really good ones? What to try?
It depends on what you're looking for. Certera has they used to call it the infused balm. I believe they're calling it the fix now. And that's like a tiger balm. So for larger muscle areas, back, but that's going to be a mentholated eucalyptus based product too. And that's been really great. Pure Leaf has a new lemongrass gel that's very concentrated. And that's been pretty wonderful for patients as far as pain relief, hands, knees, feet, head, shoulders, knees, toes.
I need me.
And then probably some of my favorites. I love Moves lotion and I love Moves cream. Their pain relief lotion is great for sore hands, sore feet, eczema. And then I use the regular moisturizer every day. It goes on my face, it goes on my hands, it goes everywhere.
I have to say, so I don't have a card, even though I work in the clinic, but my husband was actually out in Spain and he brought back cannabis oil. And I don't know, they didn't really disclose what it had in it. It just says cannabis oil. I use it every day after I bathe. Oh my God, it's so nice. It has like a little bit of smell of cannabis, but it's like, it's so nice on. And honestly, you feel kind of like relaxed.
It gets silly because obviously I don't talk to a whole lot of patients about this, but when I can, I'll be like, go get the regular hydrating moisturizer, use it on your face. I swear by it every day. I love it. I love it. I love it because it's got an anti-inflammatory property, so it'll help take redness out. Maybe it's helping with some wrinkles. I don't know, but you know.
Oh, so they have it and you can use it anytime.
Absolutely.
I love that. Okay, we're going to go look at that after, and we're going to bring that in and we're going to take a sample and we're going to try it because I think that would be a really cool thing to try. Now, what about other ways of taking, because some people say, oh, make teas and things like that. So is that's probably a little more advanced for most.
Yeah, patients. You can get into making teas and things like that, even just adding a little bit of, of your bud into, a tea strainer, diffuser, things like that. Making your own edibles. That's kind of the classic brownies, cookies, can of butters, things like that. So you can use, it's easier now too. You don't have to buy flour and break it down and decarb it. You can use distillate oils and RSO to do those types of things.
Oh, that's good to know. So I was going to say,
so it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of work. And now they've made it a little bit easier. So there's lots of different ways to use the products, and patients get very, very creative with the things that I hear them do as far as how they cook with it or use it for topical reasons, or making CBD dog treats for their puppies. And
I have a story about, I do have to give a little bit of a warning here. So my cousin in Chicago, she has a dog that's a year old, and she thought her dog was going into organ failure because it started like everything was releasing. The dog fell on the ground, like literally collapsed, and it was like urinating and everything like that. And she thought it was dying, and it was on the long weekend, and she thought it was, she brought it to a vet. The vet was closed. She brought it to another vet. The vet was closed. She's like, oh my God, I'm just going to bring my dog home and it's going to die in my apartment. She brings the dog home. Then she goes to the ER. She found a doctor that was open. The dogs somewhere ingested gummies. And they had it was the same effect as organ failure on this dog. And the vet said, if the dogs ingest high levels of THC, that's how their bodies react. The dog slept it off and actually woke up and is now normal. but
they don't metabolize THC the same way, so they get very, very sick.
very sick. So
Yes.
please don't have them around
Don't-
your
yeah,
puppies.
be
Please
very
don't. Be
careful.
careful.
Yes.
Don't eat ends of.
Yes.
They do?
Yes.
The dogs
Yes,
do?
I had
Oh,
one do that.
you
Yeah.
did? And same reaction, like,
A
oh.
little shaky. a little
Oh, this one,
tired,
like,
but
it
yeah.
must have been just a lot, because this dog, she said, just went down.
Yeah,
and she
that dog
said,
went for it.
I mean, and, like, literally, like, it lost all bowel movement
yeah,
control,
yeah.
everything, and she thought it was dying. She didn't know.
Dang.
And like afterwards, she's like, "Oh my God, my dog ate THC somewhere. I don't know where." And I'm like, "Was it your house?" And she's like, "No." She goes, "It wasn't me." She goes, "I know," but she goes, "It was somewhere." And like, she goes, "But the poor dog, like," and I guess after the dog slept it off, but just as a warning for people,
Yeah.
just please be careful with your pets
Yeah.
and having it around openly, because they do ingest and like you
Yeah.
said, I think they just don't metabolize it.
No, no.
And so she has this huge warning thing now on her Facebook. She's like, "Please to keep it away from your
Yeah,
dogs."
yeah,
And she goes, "My
don't.
poor doggy was like out." So I had to tell the story because I
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
"Wow, what a story." Like I never heard of it. And
No.
I didn't know that dogs don't.
Yeah,
But they do okay with CBD, right?
They can use CBD. There are some places out there that do CBD dog treats and things
Yeah,
like
I
that.
saw that.
Those are good for joint health or an anxious dog, you know.
That's
So
good
yeah.
too. Okay, so for puppies and stuff and little dogs. But
Yeah.
like I said, I was just really
But
surprised.
yeah, I
with,
wouldn't recommend giving your dog a whole
Mm.
eighth to eat.
Yeah, I know. I give myself that recommendation either. So I'd be like passed out for days. I have to say, I did have a little bit of a gummy like a week ago. One of my girlfriends, she makes some, and I was at a movie theater watching Indiana Jones. If you ask me what the movie was about, I have no clue. I slept through the whole thing. I was out like a light. I'm like, it worked great. I was like,
Gummy was great. The movie, we have no
I
idea.
had no idea. Like I couldn't even tell you what the movie was about. So don't take it before you go to the movies. Just another little caveat there. I'm like, you don't want to do that. But it's exciting that there's so many dispensaries and so many new products coming. And I think the choice for patients is probably sometimes overwhelming too.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, I know that I sat in when I first started here. I sat in with Dr. Barry and some patients that were new. And I know you guys have such a wealth of information. And I know, though, as somebody that was brand new to cannabis and listening to this, it went so over my head. And I'm like, it's overwhelming because there's so many products. And really, we had Dr. Ald on last week, and she was just talking about from a gynecological perspective of how many products work for women and in different ways and different ways of using them. But I mean, it was like, I learned a lot just from her and that. And so I think for some patients, I don't know, I think, talk to your educator, talk to your provider, because really it's overwhelming.
It is what's out there. There are feminine, relief products. Move has the Ease oil. That's great for cramps and endometriosis pain and things like that. A lot of patients will complain about GI issues, and I'll talk to them about the true powders and things like that. They don't even know that those types of things are out there.
Powder? I don't either.
So that's that different dispensaries have, but specifically the True Leaf True Powder, you can add into your coffee, your tea, your smoothies, your juice. Great for chronic pain, but GI issues, IBS, Crohn's, things like that. It's the way it absorbs has been very helpful for patients as far as relieving, different symptoms of GI distress.
Too, because a lot of people have like from stress, whether it's ulcers or whatever, and GI issues in general, whether it's reflux or something. I know that we were doing patient surveys and asking patients what they're taking and for what and what their beliefs are. And a lot of times I do see people that have irritable bowel syndrome or Crohn's, and they're saying that cannabis helps them tremendously. It really does.
Yes.
And, a lot of people are like, oh, is this plant really this so great that it, helps on so many things? It really does.
It really does.
does.
It really does. So, I feel like there's an application for it for, just about everybody. There's something out there that, definitely ask your doctor, ask your educator, reach out to the dispensaries and look through the websites. If you have questions, ask, what is this thing? Because it might be something that is, how that you could find helpful.
I think that's really good advice. It really is. So what do you think? Do you think psychedelics are ever going to come around to Florida? Let's talk about psychedelics
you
for a minute.
I think it would be awesome. Quite honestly, I love the research behind
There's a lot of research.
psilocybin and
Mhm.
PTSD. I am anything, I'm a big advocate for PTSD and veterans and things like
Yeah,
that.
definitely.
And things like MDMA and psilocybin have had, these small studies that have really had some incredible results. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen here in Florida.
I know, because
Yeah.
Australia just passed psychedelics.
Yeah.
They're legal now for mental health patients. So I mean, kudos to
We
Australia.
have ketamine treatments. That's a thing now. So who knows what might come down the pike in the
And
next
I know,
few years.
I know, like Colorado, California, they're doing a lot with psychedelic research now too, and really for psychiatric and mental health
Mhm.
issues, there's a lot of good data coming out of
Definitely.
there. So I think,
Definitely.
I mean, we have so many new avenues, and I think, the best part is they're natural. This is the thing, they're not something that's going to be like, chemically created. It's created in a plant. It's so great. And Don's giving me the sign that you're gonna get the fuck out of here. So Kara, it's been such a pleasure.
you for
I learned
having
so
me.
much. If you guys want to come see Kara, please make an appointment, come in. She's wonderful. She'll give you a wealth of information. I learned so much today. We're still gonna be Dr. Barry-less next week, and I think we're Dawn-less next week, are we? The
Week
next
after.
week after. Oh, so we
Yes.
still have you for a week, and then he's
Yes.
going on a cruise. Everyone's traveling.
Everybody's going somewhere.
Anyways, everyone have a great weekend, and we'll see you back next week.